Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Victoria and I work at NTU as a Schools Liaison Coordinator, and I'm going to be hosting today's session. Also doing all the really important technical stuff behind the scenes is Billy as well. So today's session is called Secret Life of Students. So we've got two current students who are going to talk about their experience of studying at university and how this year is slightly different to the other years gone by. But before we start the questions, just a bit of housekeeping. So your cameras and your microphones have automatically been turned off, so don't worry, no one can hear or see you at any point during this. Hopefully you can hear me. If not, just you might need to adjust your volume on your device. And most importantly, please get involved in this session. This session is here for you to ask questions, be it to myself, so members of staff, so me or Billy, or if they're more student directed, to Jennifer and Megan. So please, at any point, put any questions in the question and answer box. I think it's on the top right of your screen. And your questions are totally anonymous. So it's just myself and Billy who will see those questions. So there's no such thing as a silly question. So do feel free to put them in at any point during the talks. So I'll stop talking because you don't want to hear from me. I'll ask Megan to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Meg. I'm in my final year studying graphic design, and I'm originally from a small town called Barton, which is near Hull, which means that I moved to Nottingham to study at uni.
Thank you very much. Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm from London. I'm studying politics and international relations, and I'm currently in my third and final year.
All right, thank you very much. So you're both doing very different types of courses. Could you tell us how many hours you usually spend in classes and and how long you usually spend in seminars or classes? If we go with Jennifer, sorry, if we go Megan, we'll go with you first.
Yep, so I usually spend around 5 hours in actual lectures. So lectures tend to be when you'll go there and they'll tell you a little bit about art history. They'll give you the briefs to explain like what you need to create as an outcome. And then we also have guest lectures come in from industry. So they'll come in and talk to us about how they got to where they wanted to be. And it's just a bit of like inspiration. And then we also have seminars, which are more group discussions between each other.
Yeah. And Jennifer, how about you? How long do you spend in classes or lectures at the moment?
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. So I have one seminar per module, and I take about 5 modules. So I have 5 hours seminars, and then I have online lectures for each of those modules as well. So yeah, about 9 to 10 hours I spend.
And do you prefer sort of going to a lecture or a seminar? Do you have a preference between the two?
Honestly, I kind of miss the old traditional lectures a little bit, just because it was like a bit more interactive in the sense that you were there in uni, so you sort of had to be engaged because you've woken up and you've gone in, so you're more active. I feel like I sometimes feel a bit disengaged with the online lectures, but I will admit that it is quite convenient because it means that you can just take your class from anywhere. And obviously, given the pandemic, I think everyone needs to be a bit mobile. But yeah, in terms of seminars, I think seminars are a bit intimate. They're a bit more intimate, so it's a bit, a lot of discussion based. I don't really prefer them, but I do like the discussion. I think that's better because you get to ask questions that relate to the lecture, because you don't really get to ask questions in a lecture. But yeah, I think everyone has their own preference.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to like the lectures because they weren't nobody, like you said, would like, what do you think about this, Victoria? No one would sort of pick on you. You can just listen and have the time to sort of take it in, and then you can sort of think about it and discuss it in the seminars. So just sort of for people watching, we've got a blended learning approach this year. So as Meg and John were saying, some things are in our classroom based and some things are online based as well. Megan, how have you found this year? So the blended learning approach, how have you found it to sort of do? How have you found that? How does it work for you?
It's not been as bad as I expected it to be. it's nice in some ways because you don't have to leave your room to go to your lectures. Like, you can just do them where you are, and it's very convenient. But then I found a little bit, especially at the start, I found a lack of motivation. Just because I was used to going into the studio like 9 to 5 with my friends, and I'm one of those people who bounce off other people to motivate me. But I think now I've got the hang of sort of booking slots for the library and the studio. It's getting a bit better.
Yeah, I can imagine that not having to go into university can be quite difficult to get sort of motivation going. Is there anything you've done to sort of combat lack of motivation, Meg?
Yeah, so now that I've got the hang of it, it turns out we have, like, as a year group, they've given us a set day when we can actually go into the studio, and then we can go in and book slots for the other days by just scanning a QR code, so it's super easy. Also, in some ways, it has been better because it means they've put, so for your dissertation, which is like a really big essay, they've put most of the books online. So instead of having to go to the library and like lug your heavy books back, you can just log onto your laptop and they're there. And then also, I'm trying to focus on the positives a lot of, like, the technicians. They were always really difficult to pin down for help. Whereas now you can book an hour slot with them, and then you've got 1 hour dedicated one-to-one time. So in some ways it's better because you get your questions answered quicker.
Yeah, I see that. I've got its pros and cons, sort of blended learning and sort of in-person learning. How about you, Jennifer? How have you found this year's blended learning? Have you been able to stay motivated and engaged?
Yeah, I've been finding it hard to keep engaged and motivated. I mean, I think, like Meg, I'm somebody who benefits from contact with my peers and my lecturers, and just being in uni helps. At the buzz of everything, like bouncing between stuff. It just makes, when you get back to your accommodation, you've got stuff to do. But when you're just sitting at home 24/7, you're just a bit reluctant to like get anything done. But I will say though that the online lecture, the online lectures are still recorded, so you can visit them as many times as you want. And I still really like that was kept, because it also releases the pressure of you having to be on it and then absorbing all the information all at once. It's still recorded for you to revisit. So yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. So you both seem to have the same amount of time that you spend sort of in classes, in lectures and seminars. But what about independent study? How much time would you say you spend on that, Jennifer?
I mean, to be fair, I'll be honest, I haven't really quite got in the swing of things yet, but roughly I sort of go by this rule that I take each weekday as like a long school day. So I'll start at 9 and I'll finish around 5, 6, because sometimes I have a lecture that goes on till 6. And then anytime after that is just my free time. So I'll be doing all my work and stuff within that time, obviously with breaks. And then it just means the weekends are yours as well. So I like to do that because it's important to have time for yourself.
That's nice. So you have a distinct sort of, this is uni time, this is your time. That's a good idea. Megan, do you sort of operate in the same kind of way?
Yeah, I do. So in your first and second year on my course, you'll have allocated studio time, which is time when you go into the studio and the tutors will be just sort of hovering around and they're always there to sort of help you out with things. Whereas in third year, it's a lot more independent. So like I said before, we have 5 hours of lectures and seminars, but that doesn't mean like the rest of the time is free. Like, you are expected to sort of go into the studio and work on your project 9 to 5. And I'm very much the same as Jennifer, where if I spend 9 to 5 during the day on it, then it means I can take a break in the evenings and weekends, because you need to, otherwise you just go insane.
Yeah, no, I agree. So your courses are very different in terms of the ways that you study. So Jen, you seem to do more sort of research and more lectures. Megan, you do more practical elements to it. What do you spend your time doing, Jennifer, when you're not sort of working on university? What do you do in your free time?
Well, before COVID and lockdown, I used to go to the gym because I felt like that was an easy way to keep active and also relieve stress. And I was getting quite stressed because obviously the con is that when you're in the buzz of things, there's a lot more to do, going out with friends, going out to parties and stuff, and you do lose the time that you sometimes should be allocating to study, so it starts to get all overlapped. But yeah.
So do you do any of the extracurricular stuff, any social?
Now that there's lockdown, I study languages. I just study my languages and stuff like that, and go for a walk.
So you study languages not as part of your course? Is that something you do on your own, so off your own back? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I study Mandarin and French on the side of my course last year, my second year. That was after studying abroad in China for a month on a scholarship that the uni granted me. So yeah, I'm just really interested in languages, so I just maintain that on the side. Yeah,
it's good, I guess, within having international relations as part of something you do. Having languages is sort of an extra sort of string to your bow. Megan, what about you? What do you do in your spare time when you're not in the studio or at lectures?
I also joined the university gym because they have they have the actual gym, and then they have a lot of classes that you can join. So they do yoga, Pilates, HIIT classes, and they're all a really great package that you get together. I also joined, so it's the Nottingham Mindfulness group, just because I'm one of those people who, like, if I'm surrounded by students and people my age for too long, I feel a little bit like I'm in a bubble. So I really wanted to join a group that was outside of uni with like older people, if that makes sense, just to get like a mix, and that really helped my mental health and things. And then I also joined the Platform Magazine Society last year, in my second year.
And what's the Platform Magazine Society? What does that involve?
So it's the university magazine, which means we produce 3 editions every year, and then it's a mix of journalists, students, graphic designers, illustrators, and I kind of just really threw myself in the deep end with that. So I went to join, and then they were like, oh, we need a head designer, and I just went for it and just applied and ended up getting it, and was like, okay, now I've actually got to do this.
Oh, wow.
It turned out being one of the best things that I've done at uni, and I think sometimes the things that scare you the most turn out to be the best experiences. So yeah.
Very nice. So you're both involved in a lot outside of your studies, so I guess that's another good way of sort of meeting people and socializing and making friends outside your course. I know a lot of students who are thinking about going to university, that's something they're worried about, is if they're going to fit in, if they're going to make friends, which was something I was really worried about that. How have you found sort of making friends and meeting new people, Megan?
I actually found, like, initially when I moved into my flat, I didn't really get along with the people in my flat just because we were very different people. So it turns out that my best friends were the ones who lived above and below me. And I just think one of the biggest tips I'd give is just when you move in, go and introduce yourself to your neighbours and like try and socialise with different floors. And then you'll get to know more people and you'll have more chance of meeting people who are like you. Also, I know it's quite daunting, but in that first week, just try and push yourself out your comfort zone. Like, be real chatty and friendly. Like, I was sat with some people in a lecture in the first week, one of those introductory ones, and I just turned around and was like, oh, do you want to go get pizza? Because we'd all got free pizza vouchers. And then those people who went with me to get pizza turned out to be my friends group for the full 3 years. So yeah, just try and be confident.
Yeah, very nice. Be brave. I like it. How about you, Jennifer? Did you have a similar experience making friends?
I'm not somebody who really likes to go clubbing or go to the bars and stuff. And usually when you first come to uni in freshers, that's where most of the friend making takes place. And that's where people like establish their groups. And obviously, because I didn't really like that scene, and that's usually what everybody does, I sort of just made friends through people I already knew, and so meeting mutual friends. But I live in a studio, so it's still a bit hard to make friends, I'd say, because Meg lives in a flat, so then you've seen people. But yeah, so living in a studio is a bit different. So I do things on the side. So for example, I volunteer with the uni abroad, And I met other students who go to the uni through there. I'm also an outreach ambassador, so I meet other students through there, like Meg. So yeah, you just meet people through doing other things. So you don't always have to be interested in one thing. You can meet people through other things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. So basically, whatever it is that you're interested in at uni, make sure you sort of seek that out and do it. So just again to our viewers, if while we're talking again, if there's anything you'd like to ask, do feel free to put that in the question and answer box. So yeah, moving back to Jennifer and Meg, you both seem like really busy people. You've got a lot going on. You're working. You've got lots of social activities. How about going home? So going back home, do you get much chance to do that, Jennifer?
In first and second year, I wasn't going home as often because obviously we had uni, so I had a timetable. So I'd have to fit going home around my timetable. But now that everything's online, it's a lot more flexible. I can go for longer periods of time. I won't say as often, but I can stay more because, like I said, I can do my seminars online, even though they still are on campus based. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just more flexible. You could do a lecture from your actual home rather than being in your studio. That makes sense. How about you, Megan? Do you go home a lot, or did you?
Yeah, I'm quite a home bird. So especially in first year, like I missed it a lot, and I'd go home like probably every 4 or 5 weeks. I was quite lucky as well. It's worth looking out for. Santander, when you get a student account with them, they gave you a free, I think it's called a rail card, and it was for 4 years. And that's really, really useful because it means your trains are like super cheap. It knocks off quite a lot, and it made going home as often doable.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I had a rail card as well. So I used to go home once every couple of months and use that rail card, and you save a lot of money. So it's definitely worth looking out for one. So yeah, you've got a lot going on in terms of classes, social life as well. But I guess you've moved out of home, so now you've got all the boring responsibilities of things like finances and cleaning. Megan, if we stick with you, how do you manage these sort of tasks like cooking, cleaning, and the every day-to-day running of your house?
So in first year, I think it got to a point where the flat was just really disgusting. So we made a rota. Well, I say we. I made a rota and just put it on the door, and it made it easier because it meant everyone knew when it was their turn to clean the flat. There was no arguments. If someone wasn't pulling their weight, you could see because it was on the sheet. And then luckily this year I live with 6 girls and they're all clean freaks, so it's not as difficult. And then in terms of food and things, because there's 6 of us, we just order from Morrison's online. It gets delivered straight to our door, and then because there's so many of us, the delivery cost is minimal, and it just saves like lugging your bags up the hill. So if you live with quite a few people, it might be worth just asking them whether they want to get it delivered.
Nice. You sound way more organised than I was when I was at uni. How about you, Jennifer? How do you go about sort of food shopping? Any tips?
In first year, I used to go crazy with the food shopping. Try and pack my fridge as much as I could. But because it's only me, it would get a bit bad with food wastage because I'd cook and there'd be a bit too much, and then I'd put it in the fridge. But then you might decide you want to take away because that's just how uni is. Friends might invite you out for a pizza, and then before you know it, food's just going bad. So this year I've decided to just do smaller shops, and it works so much better. You save money, you're not wasting as much food, and so yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys both well organised, and I was at university. I know a lot of students watching finances, money and managing money is something that they're quite worried about. Jennifer, do you budget, or do you have any tips about how you manage your money?
Yeah, budgeting is very important, I think, in uni. I think if you don't budget even a little bit, it might get a bit out of hand, depending on your financial situation. Because before you know it, once you've been invited out a few places, you've not budgeted enough money for your rent, or you've not budgeted enough money to get clothes or food. So yeah, I'd say budgeting is very important.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on how you budget, Meg, or do you budget?
Yeah, I do. So I have a little pink book where I just write all of my budgeting in. And the way I do it is, as soon as I get that letter from Student Finance saying how much I'm entitled to, I'll sit down and I'll figure out how many weeks it is until my next loan payment. And then I'll just take away my rent and divide up what's left between the weeks. And I'll even make sure that I've got enough for those weeks, say like Christmas breaks and stuff. Just because in first year I didn't do that, and I remember going home and having no money those weeks, and then they're the weeks you want to be going out with your friends or like buying Christmas presents and things. So you do need money every week of the year.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're coming to the end of this interview. We've talked lots about different aspects of university, so from your independent study to the course you're doing, budgeting and finance. So I'd just like to finish talking about mental health. So moving to university, you've got a lot on your plate, you're leaving family behind, you're taking on new responsibilities, meeting new people. Megan, how do you manage your mental health?
I'm really into walking. So in the actual city centre, we're quite lucky because we've got the Arboretum, which is on the doorstep to uni. We've got the Forest Rec, which is a really, really big park that you can run around if you like running. I don't. And also a little, like a short, I think it's a bus journey away, is Woollerton Hall. So it's a beautiful, beautiful park, and there's like free roaming deers. So there's lots of places where you can go and just be around nature, and it just gets you out of the buzz of the city because it is quite overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, I go to Woollerton Park a lot as well. It's lovely. About you, Jennifer, how do you sort of take care of your mental health?
So I try to exercise even at home, even if I'm not going to the gym. I'll do a home workout. I also like to make sure I do nothing sometimes because you just want to give your brain and your mind time to relax, I feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like tidying my room. I really like tidying my room because when my room gets a little bit messy, my mind starts to feel cluttered and I can't get on with things. So yeah, tidying my room.
Yeah, that's something I actually did at university. So unlike you guys, our house was always a mess, but I used to keep my room really tidy so that it was sort of my sanctuary and it was my space that I could sort of take some time out. So sort of just to finish off, have we got any tips that our students can take away? Jennifer, if you had one piece of advice you'd give, what would it be?
I'd say to keep on top of things. The worst thing to do is to spend too much time socializing and not enough time studying, because you don't want your work to pile up, because then it can become quite stressful and it's hard to recover from that and catch up all the work.
Yeah, so just kind of remaining balanced and splitting your time. That's good. How about you, Megan? Do you have any tips, top tips for our students to take away?
Yeah, kind of similar to Jennifer, just try and find a balance, because in some ways, like, you don't want to overwork yourself and constantly be doing like uni work and then not have any of those amazing memories from uni, but then also you don't want to party too much and then end up with a low grade, because uni is expensive. Like, you don't want to spend, I'm not even going to say how much because it makes me sad, but however much it costs to go to uni and then not get a decent degree out of it. So yeah, just make sure there's a balance there.
Thank you very much. So that's sort of the end of the questions from me. Thank you for sharing your experiences today, and thank you for putting me to shame to show how unorganised I was when I went to university. So that's the end of the questions. Billy, have we had any questions come through on the question and answer box?
Yeah, we've had quite a few questions come through actually.
All right.
So I'm just going to fire straight through them because we've only got a few minutes left. Meg, I think this one was for you. You've mentioned the word "the studio" quite often, and someone just wanted to know what the studio was.
Yeah, so the studio for me, it's quite a fancy term for just a room really. But in Waverley, it's the space where all the creative students sort of gather. So we have all the really nice Mac suites on there. So they're all loaded with Adobe software, so Photoshop, Illustrator, everything you could need. And then we also have a little room where the technicians stay. So if you ever need any help or any questions about how to use anything, they're always literally next door. It's just a nice space, and they try and make it look as close to what an actual design studio in the industry would look like, so you get used to working in that environment.
Cool, thank you. Jennifer, I'll go to you for this next question. Someone just wanted to know, what's Nottingham like as a city?
Well, for me, because I'm from London and it's quite a big city, Nottingham is the perfect bit in the middle between too far out and the city. So it's a nice mix because the city centre is really nice. It's not too big, so it's not a city that you just get lost in compared to like somewhere like Birmingham. I felt quite lost in Birmingham when I visited there. But yeah, I really like Nottingham. There's a lot of things to do. And if you want to, Leicester's not too far away, so you can just hop between places if you'd like to. So yeah, I really like it.
Cool, nice one. And shout up if you want to answer this one, because I'm not sure what societies you might be a part of. But someone was just asking, are you guys members of any of the societies at NTU?
Was that for either of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm only really part of the Platform magazine. I've also joined, there's one called, I can't remember the name of it, I think it's Paw Print Society, and it's where we just go and walk dogs. So people give us their dogs in the local area, and it's all to do with like positive mental health and stuff. We haven't actually had a chance to walk them yet because of COVID, but I'm excited about that one.
All right, that sounds good. Cool, thank you. And then we've got another question. I'll go to Jennifer for this one. Do you think it's still possible to make friends if you're living at home and not in uni accommodation?
I'm presuming you're living in the city, but not in accommodation, like at home in the city, or are you commuting?
I think that's what they're saying, yeah. Either commuting or maybe just living with their parents still. Well,
it's still, you can still make friends. There are lots of societies you can join. There are clubs you can join, sports clubs, art clubs. There's so many clubs. There's even something on the campus called a Global Lounge, and it's for like students who are from all over the world, but it's welcome to all NTU students, and you can go there and just socialise and learn languages and talk to people about where they're from. So I think the uni is really big on community. So there's never really a chance to feel left out. There's always something you can get stuck into, whatever your interests. So yeah.
Thank you. And Meg, we'll go to you for this one. What amenities are there on site of the NTU campuses?
Did you say amenities? Like
yeah.
The library and things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots and lots of things. There's obviously the library, which is 3 floors, and it has a really, really nice garden on the top. Obviously in winter it's not the best, but during summer it's really nice to take a book up there and just sort of hang out a little bit. There's loads and loads of cafes, which you can also work in, so they're internet cafes. Just if like the library sometimes is a bit quiet and sort of very focused, but if you want to do some work that's a bit more casual, it's nice to go and sit there. We've got the gyms and the SU. The SU is a really nice place. Usually they host a lot of evening events, but with everything going on, they're still open during the day, so you can just go and sort of hang out in there as well. But yeah, no, lots of things, and I think if you do get the option to just come and wander around a little bit, that's worth doing, just so you get an idea of what we've got.
Awesome. Cool. So Jennifer, we'll go to you for this last question because I know we're short on time. Are there many opportunities for students to get part-time jobs while studying at university?
Yes, so I'm an outreach ambassador. That's a job of the uni that's really flexible because the hours are just sort of shifted around your timetable and when you're free. But in terms of getting jobs, there are jobs in the city. You've just got to put yourself out there. But there's also something called uni temps, and with unis, and that's where they just post all the jobs that are available in the city and chances to work with the uni. So there are chances to work. So yeah.
Nice Cool, so I think that's all the time we've got for questions now. So I'll just go back to Victoria to finish off the session.
All right, thank you very much for your questions. And at the end of this webinar, or at the end of the open day, if you're like, oh, I should have asked that question, or I wish I'd found out that, you can use something called UniBuddy. So if you go onto NTU's homepage, there'll be a section called UniBuddy, or if you type it into Google, so just type NTU UniBuddy, and that's a chat function that will allow you to chat to members of staff, so like me, or specific lecturers on certain courses, or you can speak to students like Jennifer and Meg as well, and ask any specific questions you've got. So don't worry if you think of something later on, you can always chat to us on UniBuddy. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much to Jennifer and Meg for taking time out of your weekend to be with us today. Thank you very much, everyone.